In the previous lesson, I realized that the recording had static. There are some points where you couldn't hear anything. So I'm just going to go over the poem again in this very brief video. I was saying that this poem by Derek Walcott captures the whole essence of America as the newest empire, and so it captures aspects of new colonialism. Notice the title of the poem, The Virgins, and maybe it's metaphoric and it's probably a historic name. There must have been a reason why, but we cannot miss the whole play on the title, where the word virgin means untouched. And when you look at it from that perspective, it is an image that is sold to tourists. An image that says the Caribbean is paradise. Come and spend your holiday. So let's look closely at what the poem has to say about America, and this is the Virgin Islands, U.S. Virgin Islands. Down the dead streets, and dead is a metaphor speaking of the whole situation that has changed, what the Virgin Islands has become. The streets are dead, literally and metaphorically. The streets are sun-stoned. Tells you about the climatic conditions and its effect. And the name of this particular street, Frederiksted. And Frederiksted in Virgin Islands is the first free port to die for tourism. Notice the metaphors again, to die. And not only metaphoric, but it's loaded with sarcasm. To die for what? Tourism. And so you begin to try to do a parallel thing. Is tourism something that we should die for? And then consider the whole meaning of what is a free port. I think I visited one in Curacao, and you're able to purchase things and you don't pay any taxes on them, no value added tax whatsoever. But the trick is, and what happened when I was there, is that we got excited about buying at such a cheap price, and then we realized after purchasing that there was no way we could take our bags or our purchases out of those stores, those large bonds. It was something you had to pay for shipping and they would ship it to your destination. And so, in that way, it's controlled. The people who live in the country do not get access to that kind of advantage, if you want to call it that way, but tourists, they get that advantage. So, yes, the Caribbean sold as a tourist destination, and America, it is sold as this is America's Virgin Island, and you could get the best there. And so now, strolling at a funeral pace, I am reminded that's the narrator, the persona in the poem, and he participates. And notice how the movement and the pace, again, death. I'm reminded of life, not lost to what? The American dream. So reminded of life before it became a destination where people could transfer the whole American dream. And here, when it talks about American dream, consider fantasy versus reality. What is the American dream? Of course, it is that it's a land of plenty. It's probably a place where anyone could become whoever they want to be and the poor become rich. But then look at it from the perspective of myths that we cultivate or that are sold to us. So Life before the American dream. But my small island, the simplicities can't better. So when you compare and contrast, my small island, the simplicities cannot better the new empire's civilized exchange of cameras, watches, perfumes, brandies. And ironically, that's good life. But Persona, the poet, says that's so cheaply underpriced. Check out what happens here with the paradox. Cheaply underpriced. Like I was explaining just now. Tourists, it's cheap, but for nobody else. And so you get a contrast of the experience of the tourist and dying for tourism. The country of itself says, yeah, tourism is going to bring money. So on the one hand, you've got the tourist perspective. On the other hand, you have the small islanders perspective. Small island, people living there, native. On the price, not only the crime rate is on the rise. Do your thing with the kinds of trade metaphors Walcott uses, what's on the rise, and succinctly it is speaking about what happens to the native people. And it's streets that are blighted with sun, and there are stone arches, and there are plazas that are blown dry by hysteria and rumor. And then there's a condominium that drowns in vacancy. Condominium, those large structures put up there, and they're going to fill them with people, but drowns in vacancy. And again, you get a kind of paradox at work, contradictory terms. And there, the bargains are dusted, and only a jeweled housefly drones over the bargains. So, back to the economics of the situation, the metaphors. Speaking to economics, no money for the island. There's a jeweled housefly, and notice what is jeweled. And the housefly drones over the bargains, and then the roulettes spin. So think about the roulettes indicating time and the changing of time, the changing of tides, and they're spinning rustily to the wind as something happens. There's a vigorous trade. Money making? Every morning it would begin afresh by revving up green water round the pierhead. Pierhead is where the tourist vessels dock, the big ships, and they're heading for where the banks of silver tresh. You could work out what are the banks of silver that tresh. And quite recently, or maybe within the last 3 to 4 years, there was such a scandalous story about what was happening between America and the US Virgin Islands. So you have this guy's name is Epstein, and all the rich and famous, even the Queen's son, the Duke of Earl, he got involved in it too, and they were just bringing out, by plane bringing on the age girls to the island where Epstein had his, what do you call it? I don't know what to call it, but it's a sale of underage girls for sex. So work with the American dream and what Walcott's poem gives you and see how we could understand or what we could apply to new colonialism.